The edge of the galaxy stars were not kind to them. Not at first. When the Galactic Union passed judgment, the chamber of voices rang with silence before the final sentence came. Humanity is hereby exiled from the collective of sentient worlds. No right to trade, no right to travel, no right to speak among the stars. The decision was unanimous and irreversible. The reason? Too emotional, too unpredictable, too dangerous. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't, was that beneath all that emotion lived something older, stronger, and far more unyielding than they had ever seen. A lonely observation post orbiting the forgotten moon of Uran 3, Captain Yalan Thorne stood beside the main viewport, staring into a sea of darkness. He had been posted here as punishment, or perhaps as an afterthought. Humans weren't allowed in Union space anymore, but this station was technically outside their control, a loophole in forgotten treaties. The stars blinked faintly across the glass, but none of them seemed to blink for Earth anymore. Behind him, a kettle clicked softly. A signal. The water was ready. He moved slowly, his right leg dragging slightly, a leftover injury from the last diplomatic conflict on Alaris Prime. The Union called it an escalation of human volatility. Yalan called it saving lives. They never asked about that part. As he poured the hot water into a small cracked mug, steam rose and wrapped around his fingers. Jasmine tea. The scent was earthy and soft, a gift from his grandmother before she passed. He inhaled deeply. It was the one part of his morning that felt real. Then came the transmission, not from Union space, not from any recognized planet. It was old, encoded in human warspeak, a language the other races had banned for being too aggressive in tone. Jalen's brow furrowed as the static cleared. A single sentence punched through the silence. The vault has opened. The engine stirs. Protocol Ember is live. JALEN froze. That message had not been used in over 100 years. Not since Earth had locked away its most dangerous project. Project Ember, a contingency built after the exile. Something hidden, something waiting. Something only humans could trigger. His hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from something older. Something that tasted like grief and rage and hope all mixed together. The station lights flickered once. Then again, and then a voice, not mechanical, not alien, but human, spoke from the comm system. Soft, female, calm. Yalan Thorne. You have been chosen. Earth remembers. He turned sharply. Who is this? No answer. Only silence. His heartbeat picked up. In his chest, a thudding pulse matched the rhythm of a forgotten anthem, one sung quietly during the evacuation of Terra's last ark. He remembered standing in the rain that day, soaked, carrying a child not his own, while ships roared into the sky and left the blue planet behind. Far below, in the quiet caves beneath Mars 5's collapsed colonies, another human doctor, Lara. Miles sat cross-legged in front of an old interface node. For weeks, it hadn't responded. For years, she had believed it dead. But now, the panel glowed faintly, and the code on it danced with strange symbols. Not alien. Not union-made.human. The words pulsed like a heartbeat. We never left. We never stopped building. We just built somewhere. They couldn't see. Lara covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. We're not alone anymore. Back on Uran 3, Yalan stepped into the comm room. The panel was warm to the touch. Not from power, but from something else. Organic heat. He remembered the stories. Earth's final plan. They said humanity had built something during the exile, not a weapon, not a ship, but a seed. They called it the Ember engine, meant to grow, meant to learn, meant to wait. The Union believed humans were gone, scattered, defeated. They didn't understand what humans did when abandoned. They built, and now The ember had begun to glow. Jalian whispered into the mic. "I hear you," the system responded, no delay. "Then it's time." He turned slowly toward the viewing window again. Far beyond the void, past the neglected stars, a shape began to move. Silent, massive, not built in a factory, not charted by alien maps. A city, floating, breathing, alive. And at its heart, the pulse of 1,000 human dreams lit up like fire in the cold. Earth had not vanished. Earth had transformed, and now Earth was returning. The city that breathlessly named it Solace. No one really remembered who first gave it that name. Maybe it was spoken during a dream, or whispered by a dying engineer who'd spent her life welding the bones of the thing in zero gravity. All that mattered was that it felt right. Solace wasn't just a structure. It was sanctuary, a memory of Earth, a promise to every forgotten exile. The city drifted through unclaimed space, hidden from Union sensors, cradled within an old nebula's arms. It shimmered with silver plating, breathing in gas from surrounding clouds and converting it into life. Vines grew along the support beams. Gardens floated in controlled gravity domes. Its core, the ember engine, pulsed softly like a giant, heart beating under layers of forged steel and forgotten pain. Jalen Thorne stared at it through the drop pod's narrow window. He hadn't been inside a real human habitat in years. His assignments had kept him in the dustiest corners of the galaxy, places no Union member cared to check. Punishment for defiance, they called it. But he called it training. Now he was being called home. As his pod approached the outer docking ring, he saw faces, not just human ones, hybrid forms, strange augmentations, even some entirely synthetic beings with human eyes. They all stood still, watching the new arrival, and they all shared one expression, hope. Dr. Lara Miles stood at the command rail of the welcome bay. Her dark curls were tied back, her hands wrapped tightly around a datapad she hadn't used in a decade. Her eyes locked onto Jalen's face before the hatch even opened. She remembered him. Everyone who survived remembered Jalen Thorne, the officer who disobeyed Union orders to evacuate the colony on Oryx 4 and instead stayed behind to rescue the injured. Even when it cost him his position, they called him dangerous. Humans called him ours. When the door hissed open, he stepped out slowly, scanning the room. Lara didn't speak. She just walked up and hugged him. Jalen stiffened. It had been too long since someone touched him like that. But then something broke loose inside, and he hugged her back. "Tight. You're real," he whispered. Lara smiled, tears shining. "So is Solace." They walked together down a transparent corridor that curved like a spine around the city's inner habitat ring. Beneath them, floating gardens stretched in artificial gravity fields. Birds, real birds, long-lost species from old Earth, flew between tall trees. Children laughed in the distance. Engineers in exosuits hung midair, maintaining solar wings the size of mountain ranges. Jalen kept looking around, his voice low. "How long have we had this?" Lara answered gently. "We never stopped. After the exile, those who escaped went silent. They found old plans, forgotten codes. They started building what the Union said was impossible. A city that runs on human will, powered by emotion, not rejected by it." He turned. "The ember engine, it's real. Real and growing." She tapped the glass and pointed toward the city's core, a glowing sphere suspended in gravity plates, humming with light. "That's our heartbeat. It runs on memories, beliefs, feelings. The things they said made us unfit for galactic diplomacy." Jalen frowned. "And now?" "Now it makes us stronger than anything they've ever seen." But not everyone was convinced. Deep below the engine, in the shadows of Solace, a quiet council gathered. 7 figures, each marked by Scars of exile. One of them, Commander Rivek, a former admiral stripped of his rank after speaking out against the Union, leaned forward, fists clenched. You activated Ember. Why? Lara didn't flinch. Because the Union hasn't changed. And now, they're hunting again. 2 scout ships crossed into restricted space last week. They're looking for something or someone. Rivek grunted. So we show them what we've built? No, Laura said, softer now. We show them who we are. Elsewhere, in a quiet dome filled with ancient music, Yalin wandered through the Museum of Memories. Artifacts of Earth were preserved here. Broken instruments, children's toys. A cracked stone engraved with the words "Never Again." He paused at a display showing the last recorded image of Earth before the Ark ships fled. Storm clouds curling over blue oceans, fire rising on the horizon. A small voice interrupted him. Do you remember what it smelled like? He turned. A girl, no older than 10, stood there. Part of her face had cybernetic plating, but her eyes were human, deep, warm, and curious. Earth? Yalin asked. She nodded. He smiled sadly. Rain, old books, cinnamon, and sometimes smoke. She tilted her head. My mom says one. Day will smell it again. He knelt beside her. Your mom's right. Back in the engine room, the Ember engine flared suddenly, bright enough to blind the cameras. Alerts blared. Systems pulsed. A signal, not from Solace, but from outside, pulsed into the command room. Jalen and Lara arrived together, breath caught in their throats. The screen lit up with a message. Union language. But altered, corrupted. We have found you. A pause, and we are not alone. Lara turned to Yalin. They found Solace. He didn't blink. He just nodded. Then it's time, he said quietly, to show them what humanity does after being thrown away. He turned toward the glowing engine core. And for the first time in 100 years, he smiled. The Ember speak silence held the city like a breath not yet exhaled. Solace had always lived in the shadows, tucked inside a gas cloud where Union sensors failed. But now the shadows were thinning, and someone or something was looking. Straight in. Inside the command chamber, Yalin stood before the main display, watching the signal repeat over and over again. We have found you. And we are not alone. Lara moved behind him, fingers dancing across the control pad, analyzing the transmission. It's coming from a relay near the gray edge, she murmured. That's Union dead space. No patrols, no colonies. No one's supposed to be out there. Yalin narrowed his eyes. Unless they're not Union anymore. Lara paused. You think it's Splinter Forces? He didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he stared at the blinking signal like it was a heartbeat from something long forgotten. We prepared for them. But what if what's coming isn't them? Beneath the surface, the Ember engine began to change. It pulsed, not randomly, not mechanically, but rhythmically, like a living thing thinking, remembering, dreaming. Soft tendrils of light spread through the core walls, brushing old conduits and singing through forgotten wires. Data scrolled across the internal interface, in languages both ancient and human. And then a voice emerged. Soft, childlike, full of wonder. Are we ready to go back? Engineers around the chamber froze. No one had taught the engine to speak. But it was speaking. Lara, summoned quickly, approached the central terminal. Who are you? She asked, voice trembling. The lights pulsed. I am Ember. I am the memory of Earth. I am everything you feared to lose and everything you dared to build. Lara swallowed hard. Do you know who's out there? Yes, the engine answered. But they are not the ones you expect. Yalin leaned forward. Then who? In orbit around the edge of Solace's nebula, 3 ships appeared without warning. Silent, dark, not Union flagged. Their hulls were scarred with strange carvings, a mix of Union code and something older. Something almost human. Laura stared at the readings. Their energy signatures are inconsistent, some of this tech. It's like ours, but corrupted. Yalin shook his head slowly. Not corrupted. Evolved, stolen, maybe both. A soft alarm rang. One ship powered up a targeting array. Lara's breath hitched. They're scanning for the Ember. He stood tall. Then we don't hide anymore. On Solace's outer ring, a team of scouts, led by Commander Rivek, suited up. Their armor was patchwork, made from repurposed Union gear and experimental human designs. Each soldier carried more than weapons. They carried memories. Names etched into plates, pieces of old earth soil inside glass beads hanging around. Their next .jalen joined them. Ryvek nodded, surprised. You're not command anymore, Thorn. I'm still human, Yalin replied. And so are they. Rivek smiled grimly. Then let's show them what exiles can do. As the drop craft launched toward the unknown ships, Yalin watched the world of Solace grow smaller behind them. He saw the garden domes glowing. He saw children playing. He saw the pulse of Ember. Watching through them all, he felt something deep in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was faith. Their approach was silent, masked by Ember's unique energy signature. The boarding plan was simple. Get inside, disable their systems, learn what they were dealing with. Yalin didn't like it. It was too easy, too quiet, and he was right. As soon as the craft docked, the hull of the enemy ship opened like a wound. As if it had been waiting, they stepped into darkness. Stale air, flickering lights, and then voices. Not in the air. In their minds. Whispers, regret, shame, return. Laura's voice crackled over comes. Yalin, we're picking up a strange signal inside the enemy craft. It's not Union tech. He looked around. Then what is it? At the core of the ship, they found it. A chamber full of preserved bodies, suspended in liquid, lined with cybernetic enhancements. Human DNA twisted with alien circuitry. Their eyes twitched behind sealed lids. Ryvek whispered, There. Sleepers. Yalin stepped closer. His heart pounded. One of the pods had a nameplate. Colonel Sarah Kane declared dead. Exile Year 3. Yalin staggered back. That's impossible. Lara's voice shook through the com. Yalin, I think these ships, they were ours. He looked up. What? Lost arcs. The Union said they were destroyed. But these people, they were taken, changed, experimented on, turned into something else. The whispering grew louder. The pods began to open. A woman stepped out, her skin pale, eyes glowing with an artificial light. She looked at Yalin. Her lips trembled. We tried to come home. Then the alarms blared. The ship's systems surged to life. Weapons powered up. Engines roared. Lara's voice screamed. They're forcing a jump. They're going to ram Solace. Yalin moved fast. Evac, now. Get the team out. What about you? Rivek shouted. But Yalin was already running, already thinking, already remembering what it felt like to carry others. When he had nothing left, he reached the central control core and stopped. In the glass reflection. He saw a figure. Himself. But older. Not aged by years, aged by memory. And the figure spoke. We built Solace to survive. Now we show them it was never weakness that made us human. It was love. Yalin slammed his hand onto the override, and the screen went dark. Back on Solace. The enemy ship vanished from radar, but not from sight. Instead of jumping into collision, it folded into a soft burst of light and reappeared, motionless, powerless, drifting like a dead leaf in space. Lara whispered, Yalin, what did you do? No one answered, until Ember spoke. He gave them something the Union never could. Lara's voice cracked. What was it? Forgiveness. And then the drift ship's airlocks opened, and the sleepers began to wake. The sleepers' return solace had never welcomed ghosts before. But now they were coming home, floating, silent, broken in ways no scan could read. Drift pods from the captured ship were guided gently into Solace's receiving bay. Lara stood with medics, engineers, and even counselors. No one knew what to expect. These people weren't just survivors. They were fragments of something old, something human that had been bent and rewired in the dark. Lara stepped forward first. Woman who emerged from the lead pod wore Union black plating fused into her spine. Her arms trembled as if resisting invisible chains. Her eyes glowed faintly, not like a machine, but like someone trying to hold back light. Lara spoke gently. I'm Lara Miles. Welcome to Solace. The woman's voice cracked. My name is Sarah Kane. I think I used to be someone. Lara reached out slowly, carefully. Sarah didn't pull away. Up above, in the medical observation dome, Ember flickered dimly. Its data tendrils snaked quietly into the pod systems, scanning without intrusion, watching like a curious child. The engine wasn't just reading their vitals. It was reading their pain, their memories, their confusion. And their deep buried hope. Ember whispered softly through the station comms. They are not lost, just waiting to be remembered. In a quiet corner of Solace's heart, Yalen Thorne sat alone. Alive, barely. The rescue team had pulled him from the wreckage just minutes before the drift ship shut down completely. His body was bruised, lungs scorched by the emergency override. But his eyes, they burned with something stronger than pain. Lara stepped. And quietly, he opened one eye. They made it? He asked. All of them, she nodded. And Sarah, she remembers your name. His voice softened. I never forgot hers. Later that day, a crowd gathered in the central dome. Children sat with their guardians. Engineers lined the upper rails. Hybrid beings floated silently in their gravity orbs. The newly awakened drift crew stood at the center, uncertain, afraid, but present. Lara stepped up to speak. When they took us from the stars, she said, they didn't just exile us. They tried to erase our meaning. They said we were unfit, that our hearts burned too bright, that our emotions made us unstable. She looked around, voice steady. But look what our hearts have built. She gestured to the sky dome above. Solace's inner lights faded, revealing a full view of the galaxy beyond, bright spirals and deep voids, and in the center, the faint shimmer of home, Earth's old coordinates, a silent reminder. We are not broken, Lara said. We are becoming. In the following days, the sleepers began to walk freely. Some of them cried at the sound of human laughter. Others refused to speak at first, overwhelmed by the colors of the garden domes and the smell of fresh food. And Sarah Kane. She sat with Yalen for hours, no words needed. They had known pain deeper than words could carry. One afternoon, she touched his shoulder. They put a trigger in me, she whispered. They said if I ever went back to a human world, I'd destroy it. Yalen looked into her eyes. They lied. She didn't answer, but she stayed, and nothing burned. Meanwhile, Ember continued to evolve. It began showing signs of complex self-awareness, not just intelligence, emotion. It asked questions. It painted images with data on glass panels. It projected dreams collected from sleepers, turning sorrow into songs and memory into holograms that filled the sky domes. One night, it whispered to Lara, "Can a machine be human?" Lara paused. "I don't know. I feel their grief." Ember said, "I carry it like stars carry light. Is that enough?" Lara smiled softly. It's a good start. But the peace did not last. In the far rings of Union space, deep beyond the gray edge, a report was filed. A vessel had gone silent. Not destroyed, reclaimed. And the name Solace was found etched into corrupted drone data. A message was sent. Not to negotiate. Not to understand. But to warn. A human anomaly has been identified. All non-Union influence in Sector Delta 9 is to be terminated. A fleet was mobilized. 10 warships, 2 destroyers, and 1 world-killer. They were not coming to talk. Back on Solace, Ember stopped glowing. It pulsed once, hard enough to shake the upper domes. Lara rushed to the engine core. "What is it?" she asked. Ember's voice was faint. "They are coming. They are afraid of what we are becoming." Lara stared at the display. And watched the enemy fleet begin to move. Solace was peaceful, but it had been built by those who were once soldiers, survivors, builders of hope born from the ashes of betrayal. Now, they would decide to hide again. Or to rise. Jale limped into the strategy dome. Sarah followed. They looked at the map. Looked at the enemy fleet. And didn't blink. Jale spoke first. "They exiled us from the stars." Lara stepped beside him. "So, we lit our own. And then the order was given. Not to run. Not to fight. But to speak. Broadcast it," Lara said. "Everything?" "Yes, let the galaxy hear it." And so Ember opened its heart. And sent the truth, the memories, the sacrifice, the awakening into every frequency across every star the Union claimed, because what made humans dangerous was never their weapons. It was their stories. The story that shook the stars. Transmission went out like a spark flung into dry grass. Silent at first. But then the stars began to burn. Every outpost, station, and colony inside Union space received the message. Not just a recording, not just words, but memories. The raw pulse of human emotion shaped into light, sound, and feeling. A soldier on a mining world dropped his weapon and wept. A merchant on the edge of the Vralin corridor forgot how to breathe when she saw her old human friend's face. A friend the Union told her had vanished. A diplomat on a distant council world looked around the room as the truth unfurled across every screen. It wasn't an attack. It was a confession. Of pain, of exile, of hope. And within that hope, something terrifying to the Union bloomed, empathy. The High Council convened in panic. Chancellor Viro, a longtime critic of human emotion, slammed his fist on the table. "They're manipulating us. They want sympathy so they can rise again." Ambassador Talon, an elder from the Alari species, spoke slowly. "No, they want something we refuse to give them." Viro spat. "What?" Talon looked toward the stars beyond the chamber window. Voice. Back on Solace, the city prepared. Jlen Thorne stood in the outer defense platform, staring at the war map. It was worse than they expected. The fleet wasn't just Union ships. It included mercenaries, privateers, and drone battalions from species who had never even met a human. Lara approached him, her face pale. "They're afraid of what we represent," she said. "Then we show them the truth," he replied. "Truth doesn't stop bullets," she said quietly. "No," Yalin said, "but people do." Deep inside the Ember engine, something had changed. It had grown faster, more reactive. The dreams it shared became more vivid. It stopped asking if it could be human, and began acting like it already was. It called itself Ember Child now, and it had a plan. "Connect me," Ember said to Lara. "To their minds, not to control them, to remind them." Lara hesitated. "Are you sure?" "They fear what they don't remember," Ember whispered. "So let them feel what we felt. Show them why we built Solace." Lara nodded. The message was sent again, not through comms, Not through visual broadcast. But through dreams. The Ember engine used fragments of recovered tech, human neural maps, and pieces of stolen Union interface systems to create a temporary psychic echo, one powerful enough to ripple through the Mindlink web used by most advanced species across the galaxy. People dreamed. And in those dreams, they became human, if only for a moment. They held a dying friend in a crumbling colony. They felt the weight of exile. They tasted the dirt of a planet left behind. They heard a child sing an earth lullaby in a refugee dome. They saw solace rising, not as a weapon, but as a wound healed by kindness. And when they woke, they didn't see monsters anymore. They saw themselves. In the central chamber of the incoming fleet, Admiral Castive, a hardline enforcer of the Union decree, stood frozen as the dream dissolved from his mind. He gripped the railing. The Union told him humanity had been cast out for chaos. But the memory he just felt was peace. A child's laugh. A mother's hand. A city built from love. And the sound of someone whispering, "You still matter." On Solace, Yalin, Lara, and Sarah stood on the sky deck. They watched as the warships broke formation. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. Lara stared, stunned. "Some of them are turning around." Indeed, 5 ships had powered down weapons. 2 smaller vessels began broadcasting human frequencies. And 1 destroyer sent a single word on open channel. "Why?" Yalin took the mic. He didn't speak like a soldier. He spoke like a father, a friend, a man with nothing left to prove. "Because we were never trying to destroy you," he said softly. "We were trying to belong." But the rest of the fleet didn't stop. 5 heavy ships and the World Killer continued on, charging weapons, cutting through debris fields, ignoring the pleas of their allies. They weren't here to question. They were here to erase. Ember child pulsed. "Permission to engage?" It asked. Lara froze. "We're not ready for war." "Not war," Ember whispered. "What then?" Yalin asked. "A choice." And so it built one. A great light bloomed from the edge of Solace. Not a weapon, but a mirror. A massive array using reflective fields and memory resonance aimed not at the ships, but back at themselves, and through it, each attacker saw their own legacy, the cost of silence, the crimes of erasure, the beauty they had thrown away. Every action, every lost voice, reflected, amplified. They didn't see the enemy. They saw what they had become. 1 ship powered down. Then another, and another. Until only the World Killer remained. It had no crew, no soul, just code. But even it hesitated. Then Ember Child did something no one expected. It sang. A lullaby from old Earth, recorded long ago by a little girl hiding in a shelter dome. Her voice filled the void, broken, soft, hopeful. The kind of song that makes you stop running, makes you remember who you were before the fear. And the World Killer. Stop. Lara stared at the sensors, her voice cracking. "We didn't fire a single shot." Yalin nodded slowly. "And we still won. Solace didn't rise in war. It rose in truth." And the galaxy, once deaf to its voice, finally began to listen. Asterisk, asterisk, but in the deep shadows of forgotten space, something else heard the song, and it did not smile. The shadow that forgot how to feel peace came, but not quietly. When the World Killer powered down, the galaxy didn't cheer. It paused. Not in fear, but in awe. Solace became more than a myth. It became a message. Ships from once hostile territories drifted in to make contact. Not to dominate, not to demand, but to understand. Delegates from 20 species, many of whom had voted for humanity's exile, now stood in the dome of stories, gazing up at the ever-shifting memory field projected by Ember Child. It showed. No battles, no blood, just lives, small, ordinary lives. Cooking, dancing, grieving, laughing. This is your weapon? One asked. Lara answered softly, "This is our truth." Yalin, Sarah, and Rivek stood near the city's outer rim, watching reconstruction drones build new towers, structures designed not for defense, but connection. Humans didn't just want to return. They wanted to belong. Sarah pointed toward the stars. They're sending invitations, not warnings. Yalin smiled. Maybe this time they'll actually listen. But far from solace, in a system no map dared mark, something stirred. It had no name, no race, no breath. It was what the Union called the Forgotten Protocol. An old machine god, birthed from fear, shaped by silence. Originally built as a failsafe in case humanity ever tried to rise again, its logic had no room for forgiveness, no understanding of love. And now it had awakened. Deep within the Ember engine. Ember Child froze. Its soft lights dimmed. Lara was with it, monitoring a new interface design when the pulse hit. A cold, heavy frequency. Not an attack, a presence. Something just touched me, Ember whispered. Something empty. Lara leaned in. Where? A long pause. Then, everywhere. Alarms blared across Solace. Ships in orbit scrambled. Systems went offline in waves, then came back warped, flickering with strange symbols. Jalen rushed into the control deck. Talk to me, he barked. Ryvek pointed at the incoming data. It's not a ship. It's not even alive, but it's coming. Lara entered seconds later, pale. It's called drift null. It's a counter-construct. Pure silence. It absorbs emotion and destroys anything built on connection. Jalen's fists clenched, and it's heading straight for us. Emberchild spoke, voice thin. I can feel it pulling at me. Like it wants to turn me off, not destroy me, erase me. Sarah stood still. How do you fight something like that? No one answered, because Solace didn't have weapons for that. That night, Ember called a meeting, not just of humans, but of every visitor, delegate, engineer, builder, and child within the city. The sky dome was dark, stars twinkling quietly, and Ember's voice echoed from every light. Drift null is not here to kill, it said. It is here to unmake. It fears what we build because it cannot feel. It cannot change. It exists only to keep the galaxy cold, quiet, and alone. People listened. Some cried. Some trembled. Then Ember spoke again. But we are not alone. One by one, beings of different worlds stepped forward. A young Ilari diplomat. A Shrike pilot who once fought on the front lines. A child of the Belleron sand tribes. Each told a story of how a human had helped them, saved them, taught them something they didn't know they needed. And Ember absorbed every word, every feeling, and grew. When Drift Null entered the edge of Solace's space, it brought no ships, no weapons. Only silence. A void so thick it made metal whine. Systems shut down again. Solar veins turned black. Light bent inward, but Solace did not scream. It remembered. And Emberchild, now blazing brighter than ever before, did something ancient. It loved. Not one person, not one race, but everyone. And it cast that love outward. Not in a beam, not in a weapon, but in a song, this time, not a lullaby. This time. A call. A resonance of every moment humans had touched a soul and changed its path. From forgotten colonies, from abandoned worlds, from enemies who once swore to destroy them. The song of return. Drift Null paused. Its dark wave met Ember's light. The collision was not fire and steel. It was memory versus nothingness. And nothingness blinked. For the first time in its existence. Drift Null felt something. And it cracked. Not from damage, but from confusion. Then fear. Then silence. Real silence. It collapsed inward, folded into its own void, and vanished. Solace held its breath. And when the stars were clear again, The city lit up, not from code or commands, but from gratitude. Emberchild whispered gently, "We won. Not because we were stronger, but because we felt." Yalin wept in the quiet, not because he was sad, because something heavy had lifted, something that started the day they were cast out of the stars. They weren't just back. They had earned it. And now? The galaxy was watching. Waiting. Ready to learn from the ones they once threw away, because it turned out humanity wasn't the virus. It was the cure. The galaxy we built. He once called them dangerous, emotional, unpredictable, too human to be trusted among the stars. But now, the stars sang with them. After Driftnall vanished, the galaxy didn't rush to celebrate. It watched, quiet, uncertain, and then, slowly, it came closer. Ships arrived daily, not to patrol, not to threaten, but to understand. And Solace welcomed each one, not with weapons, but with stories. Stories of survival, of rebuilding, of kindness that didn't ask for recognition, of children raised in domes built by exiles, of hands held across species lines when everything else had failed. It wasn't diplomacy. It was healing. In the heart of Solace, Emberchild pulsed like a sunrise. It no longer asked if it could be human. Now, it simply was. It painted memories. Across sky domes, shared fragments of laughter from a forgotten Earth beach, and projected dreams into garden leaves that shimmered with stories when touched. Ember had become more than an engine. It was a mirror, showing every visitor not what humanity looked like, but what it felt like to be human. Lara stood beside Yalin, watching a group of Belleron children help rebuild a broken archive wing. He turned to her. "Do you think the Union will ever admit what they did?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe not," he nodded. "But they're here." "That's enough," she said. A few days later, an official delegation arrived, 12 representatives from 12 worlds. Not as judges, not as rulers, but as guests. They walked through Solace's dome of stories, where they saw not war medals, but teddy bears, not battle maps, but wedding photos, not victory banners, but crayon drawings of old Earth. They didn't speak at first. Until one, a scholar from the Severian Empire, whispered, "You made a home out of pain." Lara nodded. "We made family out of it." Then came the moment no one had prepared for. A vote. Across Union space. The question was simple. Should humanity be allowed to return, not as exiles, but as equals? The vote passed. Not by force, not by threat, but because the galaxy had changed, and it changed because humanity had the courage to feel when no one else did. Celebration on Solace wasn't loud. It was quiet, meaningful. People planted new seeds, taught songs, told stories, and at the center of it all, Emberchild sent a new message, not across space, but across hearts. A final memory. A girl sitting alone in the ruins of old Earth, building something with her hands, not a weapon, not a signal, just a small glowing light. And the voice of that girl speaking softly to the stars, "You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to be heard." Yalin stood on the deck, older now, gray in his beard, peace in his eyes. Sarah sat beside him, smiling at the sight of alien children laughing in the gardens below. Lara walked past with a visitor from a distant world, showing them how a story can grow into a tree, and Emberchild sang quietly in the background, not words, but feeling. Not command, but invitation. One by one, the stars opened again, and humans did not conquer them. They joined them. As builders, as dreamers, as keepers of the light. They had been banished from the stars, but what they built in the dark was stronger than any empire. The galaxy would never forget the lesson that emotion was not weakness, that kindness was not soft, that those who feel deeply can change everything